What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how I set up an I2P hosted XMPP server. If you aren't familiar with XMPP, it is probably the very best option for communication. And given the chain of events in recent years, I feel like communication is really key. So I'd like to go over how I set this up with you so that if you have an interest in setting up your very own I2P based XMPP server, so for better protection of human rights, your anonymity if desired as a chatter, well, this is going to be perfect for you. So today we're going to be going over how I set this up. So I'm going to walk you through it. We're going to start with the I2PD documentation, which has some great documentation on this. And I have gone through this. I'm going to show you how I did it on my own end so that you can confirm that this will work for you at the time of this recording. So as you can see, I2PD has some documentation on this. So if you have an interest in setting up your own chat server, not only that, but having the option to add plugins like things like OMEMO, which is essentially like Signal, something that is akin to the protection that you have when you use Signal. Not only that, with other clients such as Dino and you have Gajim, you can even use your PGP keys if you want, but I do recommend OMEMO over that just because of the perfect forward secrecy that is in OMEMO. So this is going to be the best option you have, in my personal opinion, for secure and private chatting. You can set up chat rooms, you can do one-on-one chats, you can run it any way you want. And I'm going to get you started today. We're just going to be talking about the server setup today, and then also how I set it up on my own end so you can see how I tested it as a hoster. So this is going to be from a hosting point of view today, and then later we'll probably, of course, do a follow-up more on the user end. But I did test it in Pigeon just as a quick, easy way because it had it more readily available than the Dino client to add the proxying. So let's go ahead and get started with it. Let's go over this documentation and show you how I applied it. So here's what we do. What you'll first want to do is you're going to want to go into your tunnels.conf file. So what are you going to do for that? Well, first you're going to want to open up your terminal. You're going to need to open up a terminal where you are logged in to the remote server. If you're hosting it remotely, it's up to you. You don't have to host it remotely. But just for that perspective, let's go ahead and take a look. So the first thing you want to do before anything else is install I2PD. If you're on Debian, you can do apt install sudo apt install I2PD, Y flag to answer yes to install. If you're on something like an Arch-base, whether it's Manjaro, EndeavourOS, whether it's Garuda, whether it is Artix, whatever it is that you're using, Black Arch is another great option. You'll do Pacman and then I2PD. So that's how you'll install it. Once you've installed it, the next thing you're going to want to do is create the tunnel for your XMPP chat server. This is a decentralized option for instant messaging and group chats. So let's go ahead and take a look in the location where we're going to find this file. So we're now in the I2PD directory. Now we can see the tunnels.conf. We can see how I applied this. So you can see that I added this right here. As you can see, it is identical to this. So that part's going to be identical. But I'm also going to show you where you need to add your base 32, your B32 I2P address. So the first thing you need to do, of course, is to install I2PD so you can begin with your tunnel configuration. And we're going to install the XMPP next. I've already set this up, and I'm not going through it all again. It took quite a bit of time, so I just want to cover it with you guys just to make sure it's clear for anyone interested in setting up a secure, private chat option. Something that I think everyone should have the option for. So let's go ahead. We've installed I2PD. We created our first tunnel for using the XMPP. So that's what this is for. This tunnel here, you're creating a tunnel in your I2P router. And what that does is it allows you to run the XMPP server as an I2P EAP site. So people will be able to type in the B32 address in order, and if you're not familiar with the B32 address, you can see this one right here as an example here. So next, installed I2PD. You've added your tunnel to the tunnel configuration in /etc/I2PD/tunnels.conf. Now the very next thing, what are you going to want to do? Well, I'll show you what I did. I have set up, and I have shared this with everyone. I wrote scripts for you guys to check out, and you can see on my desktop, I even wrote a shortcut for you. So with this shortcut, you double click it. What it does is it actually will open up a ready to use I2PD browser setup. So at this point, you can see that I double clicked that shortcut and it has started up I2PD. Not only that, but what this shortcut does is it uses SSH forwarding. Check out, I did do a video on how to set this up, how to set this shortcut up, and how to do the SSH forwarding. You don't have to follow this part. This is just my setup. I'm sharing with you my setup today. So that's what I have as somebody who is hosting it on another router nearby. So I've got this opened. We can see that I've also created the tunnel for it here, but you need to follow these instructions. So what you're going to need to do is, once you install I2PD, once you add this to your tunnels configuration, then when you restart the I2PD server, which you can do with something like this, you would do restart I2PD. And what that's going to do is it's going to reload the tunnel configuration that you set up right in your tunnels.conf file. This is a little more of an advanced video, so I don't expect everyone to be able to follow along, but for those who have an interest and just for the documentation to be out there and easy to follow video, that's why I'm recording today. So next, what are we going to do? And I'm considering making a public server, possibly, if people don't abuse it. Now, if people abuse it, my friend who's hosting it is not going to be happy. So I am remotely working on this, and I don't really want them to have any issues. So right now I'm just showing you how to set it all up. So the next thing you need to do is install the XMPP server. This is your chat server that's going to allow you to have a decentralized chat server where you can actually, if you really wanted to, you can even federate with other XMPP servers, and that part is down here. I wouldn't recommend that unless you know what you're doing, just because it would make more of a direct connection to other servers. You don't necessarily want to do that unless you know exactly what you're doing. So you see this after you've added your tunnel configuration and then you restarted the I2PD as I showed you, system control, restart I2PD, you should see this at the bottom, server tunnels. That's just to let you know that they're available for you. Next, what we need to do is install the XMPP server. I did that with a very simple command, apt install Prasadi. So apt install Prasadi. If you're on a Debian-based system, you'll need to add sudo to this if you're not at a root shell. Next, what do you do after that? Well, what I did was, after I installed the Prasadi, which is the XMPP server itself, what you'll need to do next, excuse me, I'm still getting over something, but I feel a lot better than I did last time I recorded. So anyway, let's get back to it. So next, what you need to do, you've got a file. This is a config file here. What you'll need to do is, on whatever machine that you're using to host the XMPP server, wherever you installed that Prasadi XMPP server, you're going to want to go to /etc/Prasadi, and then you're going to see some files here. ls lists the files. You can see they're available here. What I did, and let me tell you what I recommend you copy the original and then make a backup prosody, something like that. And I already did that over here, as you can see. I made this as a backup file. So just copy the original. That way if you mess up, you'll still have an original copy. But all you need to do after backing up the original is you will simply copy and paste this here. Copy and paste this. Copy it. And then paste it into this location on the device that is hosting the XMPP server. Okay? So, are you with me so far? Let me know in the comments if you are confused. But I'm going to keep on going. So, what you've got now is you have a I2PD set up in your browser, as I've instructed in previous videos how to do that. You have the scripts that I've offered and written for you guys to be able to have that working as a instance shortcut. And then what do? Well, you're going to need this. See, when you take a look, as I showed you, to paste from the I2PD documentation, paste this into the /etc/prosody/ this file here. And that's the name of the file. It's in /etc/prosody. And next, what you're going to want to do, because when you created those tunnels we did in the beginning of this video, it's going to generate a new B32 address right here. I keep saying B32. If you're not familiar with I2PD or I2P in general, please watch my earlier videos so you can kind of understand what it is. It's a network not exactly like Tor. In fact, one of the main differences, it uses garlic routing in contrast to onion routing. So what that means is users, well, it means many things, but one of the main differences that most people know about is that it's actually going to have each user act as a router. So Tor network will have the static onion route, or Tor entry node, middle node, exit node, things like that. Well, in this case, with I2P, each user that decides to start an I2P router is going to act as one of those routers. So that is one of the big differences. I hope you're with me still. So after you created that tunnels.conf file and you restarted I2PD after using system control restart I2PD, it will show you this. And you will see that when you click on your I2P tunnels. So when you see that, look at the server tunnels here. And what you're going to need to do, remember, we have /etc/prosody/prosody.cfg.lua. And that's open in an editor. And then what you'll need to do, in contrast to the I2PD documentation, you'll see xxx.b32.i2p along their example file. Well, you're literally just copying and pasting this into replace the original prosody file. And then what you're doing is you're taking the generated server tunnels and you are replacing exactly where it shows the XXX, and you're going to put your address here. And you grab that from your I2PD console where it shows server tunnels. These are the ones you created with the tunnels.conf. I know this video may be more confusing to some users, but I know it's a little more advanced, but I'm hoping that it's at least helpful to someone. Because that's a big reason I do this. I don't do this for money. This is not why I do this. I don't spend countless hours making pennies an hour to make money, that's for sure. So this is something I try to do as just a public service, just sharing information, sharing tutorials, sharing analysis, because I really think this information is something everyone should have access to. So, and it's right here in the documentation, so you can just follow that. But this video is kind of just something that can confirm any of your questions. After you've done that, after you've replaced all of those xxx.b32.i2p, see how it's in the file multiple different times, including key and certificate location. you're simply going to replace the XXX part with your address that was found at your I2PD console under those server tunnels. See how I've replaced it? There's no XXX anymore. It's now got the long address. Same with here, where the XXX was. As you can see over here, it's an XXX. You can see over here, it's my actual base 32B32 address. And the same for this, SSL, which we're about to generate this. But you still need to put that location in first. So put that location in here. And that's going to be used by the XMPP server. It's going to need these locations. And especially after we generate this. So after you've done that, after you've replaced the XXX, as you see in the example in the I2PD documentation, anywhere it shows xxx.b32.i2p, you're going to replace it with your actual tunnel, as I showed you right here on your I2PD console. Trying to go slow just to make sure I don't lose anyone. But after you've done that, you can quit that. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to generate this. So I would recommend just run these one at a time just to make sure, you know, everything goes well. And what you'll want to do is not just copy this. I've already done this, but I'm just going to show you an example of how you would edit it, because I want to make sure it's easy enough to follow. So what you're doing is, see how on the I2PD config, they don't know your B32 address. They just put XXX in the example configuration. So what you're going to do is erase the XXX, go over to your I2PD console, your server tunnels that say Prasadi that you added earlier, and you're simply going to replace the XXX with this long address here. And that's what you're going to do for each command. Each command that is shown right here. Anytime you see the xxx.b32.i2p, you'll replace it with your Prasadi server tunnels. Okay, after you've done that and run these one at a time, making sure each time you see the XXX, you're replacing it with this part of your server tunnel. And go through each one of them. Now these bottom two you don't need to do anything about, and I'll tell you why. Because this is changing the ownership here. These are just, they're not generating. This is OpenSSL, which is generating new key and everything. But down here, what you'll see is they've already taken care of it. There's no XXX here. Instead, there's an asterisk. What that means is it'll match every single file that could be where that asterisk is. It's something that's going to match everything in the directory. So anything in /etc/search/ and then the asterisk will match everything. So it's going to apply to all files that fill that in. So after you've run all of those commands, what you're going to do next, you're going to want to make sure to restart your Prasadi service. And since you followed my instructions so far, how are you going to restart it? Well, it doesn't mention it on the I2PD documentation right there, so I'm just going to show you the command. It's very easy. Sudo system control and then restart Prasadi. And there you go. You run that, it's going to reload all of those configuration changes you just made to Prasadi. Okay? So after you've done that, what are you going to do next? Well, take note that your admins that you added to the file is admin at and then your long base 32 address. And so what does that mean? It means you need to actually add the admin. Because you've already given them the privileges of being an admin. Well, you don't want anyone else to register that name. So what you'll do is you'll run this command. This is going to actually add the admin. But you're not going to just run that command as you see it. You're still going to need to replace the XXX once again with your Prasadi tunnel B32 address here. So you copy this over, and then just simply copy and paste it over. And that's it. Simple, simple, simple. So it's really following the I2PD documentation over the most part, but I'm trying to provide some clarification showing you how I set it up. Hopefully it'll help someone. So that's it. You'll do add user, and I've already added this user. So I've gone through this. I had to test it before I started recording, because obviously I don't want to start recording something that doesn't work out. Sometimes configuration files change I wanted to make sure this was still going to be compatible, and it was, so you'll replace that file with this. After you've added that admin, which it's simply going to ask you for a password that you want for that admin account. Okay, next. What did I do next? Well, I'll show you. So you can see my file here that I created. You can see right here is where I was running these commands here. So you can actually see me generating it right here. So you can decide, just keep in mind when you generate the certificate, it's going to be asking for country codes and things that'll be actually associated with your certificate. So you may not want to add too many details if you want to make it more private. So it is going to be a self-generated certificate though. So after you've done all that, you've added the admin user, you followed all of my earlier instructions in this video, applying it from the I2PD docs, which I am going to paste a link to just so you can help follow this video better. And then what are you going to do? Well, I used Pigeon to test it out, and I'll tell you why. It's just was quicker for me to test and make sure everything was working properly. But I do want to go through Dino and maybe Gajim coming up just to kind of show you how to connect through that. But for now, for the initial setup, what I did was I actually created this server, which is localhost. And why is it localhost? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I also edited this shortcut to do the SSH forwarding, and you don't have to do this part. But that's if you are using the I2P-desktop package on the Giddy Onion that I wrote. If you're using that and you want it to be all automated and you want it to be, locally hosted, you can add the SSH forwarding. Let's take a look. So what that shortcut does is it executes /user/bin/start-I2P. And what does that do? Well, it actually automates SSH forwarding for you, and I did cover this in an earlier video. So if you're not using this browser setup, don't pay attention to this part. After you've followed what I was already talking about, you'll already have a working XMPP server. I'm going to do another video showing how to connect to it remotely, because you have to, you have to work that all out with the tunnels and everything. So we'll work on that next. But for now, we're just doing the setup, and I'm showing you how I have it set up successfully. So I set it up with the I2PD remote shortcut, which opens up a browser setup in LibreWolf, which you can also change the browser if you want. So you could actually change the browser. I actually hashed out. You could use Molvad browser, which is like Tor browser. So you can actually unhash that and use that if you want. But right here is where you're seeing SSH forwarding. What that's going to do, it's going to forward the ports using SSH to log in with a key. And as you can see, the variable here, the login is pnet at, and then the remote I2PD server, which is this variable right here, which means it is on the local area network. So that's something that you'll want to type in the IP address associated with your I2PD server on your local area network. Then you'll do an SSH copy ID command to actually set up SSH key authentication. Check out my earlier video for that. Some of what I'm talking about, I'm afraid I'm going to confuse people, so I'm just showing you how I set it up. If you need any clarification, leave a comment in the comments below. Also, comments help get this video pushed out more, so I appreciate people who support this by commenting, liking, sharing the video. So that's how I set it up. And then I connected to 127.0.0.1, port 5222. And what that is the XMPP port that we're using. And because I have SSH forwarding for that, see how I added it here? If you're using the same setup as me, this will all work out for you. Then you'll connect to the local host because SSH forwarding creates and turns it into the local host by forwarding the ports. Then you could even start an instant message with admin, which is myself. Talking to myself because nobody else is here. So we're going to do that. So you'll put in, if you want to message somebody, you can put in admin or whatever their username is if you have friends that have joined. So I put in the full address, see, testing. I just sent a message to myself, admin is sending it to admin. So you can see that it's working. You can also see right here that it is available. When you first connect, it's going to ask, do you want to accept the certificate? And when you hit get info, you can actually see the certificate hashes here. So it's all set up, and we'll continue on talking about how to remotely connect, and maybe I'll share it so you guys can try it out. Let me know if you guys have any questions on this setup. I do have a lot of resources I've created over the years to try and help people set up things like I2P and different things. This is just yet another tutorial. So I hope you guys like today's overview of how to set up XMPP as an I2P server. I hope it wasn't too confusing. If it was, just leave a comment. You don't need my exact setup. If you simply follow my instructions for Persati and I2PD, you will have a working I2PD XMPP server. And from there, you can actually connect using things like Dino and others, or even Pigeon if you like. And you can add plugins for OMEMO, PGP, so you can actually use outside, locally handled encryption, end-to-end encryption, with perfect forward secrecy with things like OMEMO, things like that. Hope you liked today's video, and I will continue on with this series. So we will be talking more about this. We will also talk more. Today I just wanted to do an overview of how you're going to set up your own XMPP server so you can have private secure chats, and I hope you like it. Thank you guys so much for your support. I want to send a shout out to all the members here. Really appreciate you guys for supporting this and these public interest tutorials, and thank you to everybody who supports this by commenting, liking, sharing the video. It means a lot to have your support, so thank you so much. And if you want to support this, you can go to bmc.link/politictech, and also over on I2P at right2privacy.i2p for an I2P hosted blog access. Let me know if you have any questions, if anything wasn't clear, and I'll see you guys soon in another tutorial on how to protect your security and privacy and hosting XMPP and chatting on XMPP over I2P. I'll see you guys in a video soon, and thanks so much for your support.